House come to order. Members, proceed to your seats. Will the members please rise for the invocation delivered by Dr. Jeff Eaton, Hope Community Church of Frankfort, Kentucky, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We all know what's happening this weekend, so that's part of our prayer today, okay? So let's bow together. Father, there are so many things to be thankful for, and as we hurry and hustle, Lord, we sometimes forget that, and we just want to say thanks. Lord, it's no news to you that the storm is headed this way, and you tell me to ask, you ask us to ask, and I just ask for mercy, Lord, I do. I ask for your mercy, not only over us, Lord, our state, but just that 2,000-mile track of storm. I ask for your mercy. And Lord, I pray for first responders, Lord. Strengthen them. They'll be taking care of others while their own families may be in need. Snowplow removers, shelters, food pantries. Lord, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to be wise, but Lord, we also need to think of others and embark that upon us to take care of our neighbor and to watch and to ask and to take care of. And Lord, we pray over our caregivers, our hospitals, the ER units, the elderly. Lord, we pray over them. Just give us all a sense on who we need to check on and when we need to check on them. And then in the midst of this, Lord, give us wisdom and give us patience during this time. And I ask this in the name of our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play safe this weekend, too. Clerk will sound the chimes. Members, indicate your presence. Clerk will take the roll. In 89 members indicating their presence, a quorum is declared and the House is ready to proceed. Next order of business, the excuse of absent members. Gentleman from Taylor.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, that the absent members be excused in accordance of the House rules.
Without objection, so ordered. Gentleman from Taylor.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules for the purpose of allowing members to co-sponsor bills and resolutions or to submit vote modifications and have filed the proper papers with the clerk to do so.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order of business, the approval of the journal. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, the Clerk of the Senate.
Chair recognizes the Clerk of the Senate. Good Friday morning, Madam Clerk.
Good morning,
Good works of the folks down the hall.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. The Senate has passed Senate Bills 13, 22, 46, 51, and 90, and respectfully request concurrence of this honorable body.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Safe travels to all of you.
And you as well, Madam Clerk.
Dear love salt, be careful.
Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, that the journal from Thursday, January 22nd, year of our Lord 2026, be approved.
Without objection, the journal from Thursday, January 22nd, 2026 is approved. Next order of business, the second reading of bills. Clerk, please report.
House Bill 134, Representative Raymer, an act relating to sexual assault nurse examiners. House Bill 168 with House Committee Substitute 1, Representative Fleming, an act relating to voting under the influence. And House Resolution 7, Representative Hodgson, a resolution recognizing the guiding principles of elections in Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next order of business is report of committees, there being no need. Next order of business, the orders of the day. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, that House Bill 258 be taken from the orders of the day and recommitted to the Committee on Transportation.
Without objection, so ordered. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, that House Bill 312 be taken from its place in the orders of the day, read for a third time by title and sponsor only, and placed upon its passage.
Motion's made and seconded that House Bill 312 be taken from its place in the orders of the day, read for the third time by title and sponsor only, and placed upon its passage. Clerk, please report.
House Bill 312, an act relating to concealed firearms and deadly weapons. Representative Maddox.
Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the lady from Grant, 61, for explanation of the bill and motion thereon.
Chair recognizes the lady from Grant for explanation of bill and a motion thereon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and gentlemen from McCracken. I rise today to offer this body an opportunity to rectify a notable inequality in Kentucky's laws and to restore the full constitutional rights of our adult citizens. Right now in Kentucky, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are legally recognized as full adults. They can vote in the elections that shape our future. They can sign binding contracts. They can join the military. They can go overseas and fight. And they can even give their lives. They can start families, launch businesses, and they can own and possess firearms. Yet under current law, these same adults are prohibited from carrying that same firearm concealed for self-defense. This creates a dangerous inconsistency. We recognize their adulthood and the responsibilities that come with it in every other area, but we deny them the ability to protect themselves and their loved ones when they step outside their homes. House Bill 312 would finally fix this injustice by allowing law-abiding Kentuckians age 18 to 20 to obtain a provisional concealed carry license, which has the same requirements as Kentucky's standard concealed carry license: a background check, training, and proficiency in handling and operating a firearm. The Second Amendment could not be clearer. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And make no mistake, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are undeniably part of the people. In addition, House Bill 312 would align Kentucky with 25 other states which already recognize that law-abiding citizens age 18 to 20 have a constitutional right to carry concealed for self-defense. Today, we have a chance to stand up for freedom, for fairness, and for the safety of our citizens, and to make Kentucky the next state to abolish this outdated, discriminatory, age-based ban on concealed carry for law-abiding adults. If there are no questions, I move passage of House Bill 312.
Question before the body is passage of House Bill 312. Is there any discussion? Chair recognizes the gentleman from Fayette, 79, for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor yield to a question?
She will yield.
Madam Sponsor, have you been in communication with the Kentucky State Police, the FOP, or other law enforcement agencies on where they officially stand with this piece of legislation?
Lady from Grant.
No group or stakeholder has expressed any opposition to this bill.
Gentleman from Fayette.
May I speak on the bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up like many of you in rural Kentucky, hunting and fishing and going out with my dad and my grandpa, chasing down squirrels, rabbits, and even the occasional nuisance animal that the gentleman from McCracken referred to yesterday, the dreaded white-tailed deer. I did that with my shotgun, my 12 gauge, and occasionally from long distance, my 30-06. You're going to hear a lot of conversation today about guns, violence, and individuals' rights, and those are conversations we need to have. But I want to implore this body to understand, and for those watching at home and afterwards that will comment on social media, that the folks who are discussing this bill and speaking against it and who will ultimately vote against this piece of legislation, they're not doing so to infringe on anybody's right to bear arms, to be able to hunt, or to have weapons to protect themselves. We're doing it because we are genuinely concerned and afraid and terrified of what is happening in our society when it comes to gun deaths. The United States has a unique problem where the leading cause of death among children in our state, in our country, is directly related to guns. And when you lower the age limit to people who have access to those weapons, it causes more opportunity for those tragic events in people's homes and their communities. If you allow 18, 19, 20-year-olds who hang out with younger folks, more tragedy is going to happen. At the end of the day, we are all sent here to represent our constituents and do the best by our people. My overarching concern is that this legislation is going to cause an accident and more people are going to be harmed when it's not necessary. So I would just encourage this body to consider the safety of our children, the safety of our communities, and focus on future legislation that would protect our people rather than putting them in harm's way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chair recognizes the lady from Fayette, 93, for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You seem so far away from me now. But may I ask the sponsor a question?
She will yield.
Sponsor, just a point of clarification. Are K-12 and post-secondary institutions exempt from students carrying concealed weapons on campuses?
Lady from Grant.
No aspect of this legislation changes any of the locations in which it's permissible or non-permissible to have a firearm.
Okay, thank you.
Lady from Fayette.
May I speak on the bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm just going to go on and say it, to no surprise. I'm voting no on this bill. I'm voting no on HB 312 because of safety. When a weapon is concealed, the people responsible for keeping others safe don't know that it's there. Parents can't see it. Community members don't know who is armed. And law enforcement officers have less information in already tense situations. That lack of visibility creates real risk. It increases the chance of misunderstanding, escalation, and split-second decision-making being made without full information. When we're talking about 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds carrying concealed weapons in public spaces, the risks grow. They do not shrink. And I have to ask rhetorically, who's this for? Who's asking for this? I can't imagine that people are literally calling your office and knocking down your door, demanding that 18-year-olds and having them line up asking to be able to conceal carry guns. I don't have any concerned citizens in my district who have asked for this. None of them have called my office. None of them are demanding that their child be able to carry a gun to the mall, or when they're babysitting their nephew or niece or a cousin, or when they go to the park to hang out with friends. And I'll say, I have heard from my school district police chief. He and his police officers interact with thousands of teenagers every day in school and at school related events. This includes 18 and 19-year-olds, and they strongly oppose this bill. So before supporting this bill, check with your school district police departments and your SROs and ask what they think. This bill does nothing to make us more safe. It isn't good for teachers. It isn't good for police officers, for families, or any of the groups that we say we come to Frankfort to support. There is also empirical research that it's evidence, it is backed up by science and data, that should be considered before supporting HB 312. 18 to 20-year-olds represent only 4% of the population in the United States, but they account for 17% of known gun homicide offenders. Studies show that states loosening concealed carry restrictions saw an increase in firearm-related assaults up to 24% and increased homicides. And research also shows that the human brain, particularly the parts responsible for impulse control and judgment, don't fully mature until the mid-20s. So again, this bill does nothing to keep us more safe. It does the exact opposite. And addressing community safety is important to the people in my district and in Lexington, and I suspect across the state. And in Lexington, we've seen real progress. We have programs like One Lexington that have helped cut youth-related homicides in half since 2021. That is real, tangible progress. Lives saved, families protected. And it's progress that our community cannot afford to lose. Gun violence in 2025 killed or injured 4,458 children, 17 and under just last year. That's more than child cancer. That is more than drunk driving, texting and driving, and drug overdoses. These are all issues that we consider crises. And we're doing our best to address those in the General Assembly. But for some reason, when it comes to gun violence, the answer that you're seeking with HB 312 is more guns. I worry that passing this bill could undo much of the work that we've done in Lexington to make our city safe for our kids. We should be working to address issues that Kentuckians are asking us to address, the things they're facing right now: affordability, more houses, access to medical services, food, and the list goes on and on and on. We should be working to lift up Kentuckians, reduce uncertainty, and keep our community safe. This bill moves us in the opposite direction, and that's why I will not be able to support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Fayette 45 for discussion of the matter.
Wish to speak on the bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many of you, you've probably received calls and emails and texts on this, and I have over the last, I think 3 days or so. And so I wanted to understand it better, and I read it, and I went and I watched the Judiciary Committee testimony on it. The sponsors, there were no questioning, but there was explanation of votes, and I watched through everything 2 times just to understand as best I could the arguments that are put forth so I could best represent those constituents who called, texted, and emailed me. And I want to just address some things out here to make sure that we're all clear on some of the facts and some of the arguments. And one thing I heard during that discussion is that in the state of Kentucky, that if you are from age 18 to 20, that you are an adult in every other sense other than this firearm provision. Now, I don't know about everyone in here, but many of us have interns that are between the ages of 18 to 20. And if any one of you were to buy them and provide them with alcohol, you would go to jail. So I'm sorry, it's just respectfully false that everyone is an adult from 18 to 20 in this state. The gentleman on the committee, I think, made a beautiful point about that when rights are withheld from certain people, that either willingly or otherwise makes them into second-class citizens. And that person is absolutely right as far as what we view on the rights and privileges of people in the United States. We've seen it historically in some of our darker moments when you did not have ownership of your own body because of the color of the skin when you were born. We've seen people rich and poor be arrested for trying to exercise the right to vote, but they were born the wrong gender. But I would say, are you a second-class citizen because you are 18 years old and you cannot concealed carry? Are you a second-class citizen because you are 19 years old and cannot buy a bottle of bourbon? Are you a second-class citizen because you're 20 and you can't rent a car, or you're 23 and you cannot hold a seat in this body? Are you a second-class citizen because at 33 you cannot run for president of the United States of America? No, you're just a Kentuckian who gets more rights and privileges throughout your life as it has always been done. Now, I've been told that I'm predictable when I speak, so let me get to the predictable part. One argument that's often made when we talk about firearms is people at 18 can join the military, and the military has guns, so therefore anyone who's 18 to 20 should have the same rights afforded in this measure to include concealed carry. So let me just clear up some facts. There are many people in this chamber, by the way, other than myself, who wore the uniform. So I'm just going to give my perspective of someone who served and been stationed at Fort Benning, the home of the infantry, and Fort Bragg, the home of the airborne and special operations. Number one, about 77% of people between 18 and 20 are not qualified to join the military, either due to physical standards, mental health, or education level. A lot of people eliminated it right there. Those who do join the military and do serve, about 99% will only ever carry a loaded weapon with live fire ammunition when they are downrange in a hostile fire zone or on a firing range. The 1% who don't, those are your actual base MPs or the base commander who uses personal privilege to do so. Now, those who do fire their weapons, of course, in the military, it's not just hours of training, it's not just days of training, it's weeks of training. Most people, when they go to basic, it's the second or third week before they ever go to that live fire range and handle a live round, which is directly overseen by non-commissioned officers, commissioned officers, and a range commander. And then, of course, there's no access to that ammunition off the range. That ammunition is stored safely, and the weapons themselves are stored safely. And any time that they are stored separately from one another. And also, our military, as I think everyone in this room knows, does not concealed carry. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clearing up, trying to use the military as precedents for how we legislate our state laws, because I don't think anyone in here wants to legislate mandatory safe storage of ammunition separate from the weapons themselves, no concealed carry, no use of ammunition or possession of ammunition off of a live firing range. So I want to make sure that that point is fairly clear. And then I want to talk about a conversation I had with two 18 to 20-year-olds yesterday, my two interns. And this bill impacts them and their generation. And I said, no wrong answers. I would just like to hear your opinions on this because I'm more than 20 years older than you are. So let me let me hear from you exactly what you think. And immediately they were both strongly against it, saying it would make them feel less safe, not more safe. They talk about both on campus and off campus, often young men who escalate violence and confrontations, and they're worried that instead of seeing fists come out, it's going to be firearms that come out. And then they went further. They talked about the same things that the lady from Fayette 93 talked about. They said, we're not mature enough. Actually, there's science that shows that our brains aren't fully developed, that our frontal lobe that controls impulse control has not fully formed at this age. And we know that's true. That's the reason that we cannot give them alcohol at that age. Our private companies who refuse to rent them a car know that's true because they know there are higher precedents of accidents. And like the lady from Fayette 93 said, while our 18 to 20-year-olds make up 4% of the population, they make up 17% of those who commit homicide via firearm. I want to echo something again that the gentleman behind me from Fayette mentioned earlier. A no vote on this bill today takes away no one's rights. A no vote on this bill today takes away no one's guns. A no vote on this bill today does nothing to remove the fact that Kentucky is a proud and secure Second Amendment state. But I want to make sure that we don't go down a path that leads to more moments of silence in this chamber because of preventable and foreseeable increases in gun violence. I'd encourage you to at least consider voting no today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Rowland for discussion of the matter.
May I speak on this bill?
Yes, sir, you may.
I think it goes back to our constitutional rights at the beginning of this nation that we have the right to carry and bear firearms. The argument of young people killing themselves or each other with guns, it's not the guns that's the problem. It's the way they were raised up. It's the less people don't have the respect they used to have for each other. And I think that's the root of the problem is the family upbringing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Boone 66 for discussion of the matter.
Speak on the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I believe a reality check is in line for this body before we take this vote, because safety does matter. But the numbers support the notion that Americans are safer in a well-armed society. Defensive gun use is from the Department of Justice National Crime Victimization Survey. The numbers vary, but the conclusion they ultimately came to is that every year there is anywhere between 500,000 to 2.5 million defensive gun uses in the United States. The National Gun Violence Archive maintains that it's 2,000. The reason for that discrepancy, Mr. Speaker, is that those are the instances where the firearm is actually fired. This varies significantly. Another study from the same institute showed that for home invasions, in 31% of incidents where a person defended themselves, the mere mentioning that they are armed is sufficient to dissuade an attacker, to dissuade an invader. Once that firearm is shown but not fired, the number rises to 91%. So these are just what we know of. Further, we can look to the injury reports for those who have been the victims of any violence. For men, from the same Department of Justice study, for men, if you comply with an attacker, you are 140% more likely to be injured than if you defended yourself with a firearm. If you fought back without a firearm, it rises up to 150%. The numbers are even more stunning for women. Women who comply with an attacker rather than defend themselves with a firearm are 250% more likely to be injured. If they fight back without a firearm, that's 400%. We shouldn't ask Americans to put themselves into harm's way when they are confronted with an attacker, whether armed or unarmed. Now, to the point about the issue with children. Any death of a child is tragic and should be prevented. But the CDC, when they made the assertion that it is the #1 killer of children, they lied through their teeth and delegitimized themselves as an institution. First, the CDC in that study did not include infants, although they include infants in every other study relating to children. Second, they included 15, 16, and 17-year-olds when they didn't include those age groups for other safety studies with the CDC. When you accounted for those discrepancies and actually condensed the numbers, it goes down from 1st to 19th. Perhaps that's not a good talking point for the stump speeches. But to the points of other studies as well, on studies pertaining to gun control, the Grand Corporation, which is the corporation that looks to statistical significance and the reliabilities of studies, show that there were more than 22,000 studies on gun violence and gun control, and out of the studies, only 123 showed that it met minimum competence. And the ones that make the headlines are not the ones that meet minimum competence. As to the point of alcohol use, that is not a constitutional right. The right to keep and bear arms is clearly enshrined and has been in our country for almost 250 years. And to the point of hunting, which, by the way, I'm sure there are folks in this chamber who remember the days when school children would have a firearm on their truck rack during hunting season. And there weren't an epidemic of violence at the time. So it's not a presence of firearms. There's clearly something else. I reject that premise. But the Founding Fathers, when they enshrined the Second Amendment, they were not on a hunting trip for deer. They had just finished a revolution against a tyrannical government. The Second Amendment is our insurance policy. These young people Yes, the prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until well after one hits the age of 18. That is correct. But we trust them to drive. We trust them to vote, which can have an effect on 4.5 million Kentuckians. But ultimately, there is a secret to this. Every 18 to 20-year-old who wants to carry a concealed firearm probably already does in this Commonwealth. I'll take the fifth on if there was ever a point where I was one of those 18 to 20-year-olds, but that's a point that we have to consider. But further, we don't restrict constitutional rights in other areas because of misuse. We don't initiate prior restraint because someone might defame another person in violation of the First Amendment. In violation of the Fourth Amendment, we don't get rid of the warrant requirement because someone might conceal evidence in their house. We don't override the Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial because a jury might get a verdict wrong. And we don't disregard the Eighth Amendment prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment just because someone might get a sentence less than what they truly deserve. So ultimately, Mr. Speaker, it is nonsensical to me that the right of lawful Americans should ever be rendered forfeit just because somebody chooses to abuse theirs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 34 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield to a question, please?
She will yield.
Thank you so much. Sponsor, I heard you say earlier when asked about other stakeholders, you said no stakeholders were against House Bill 312. But let me just ask this question a little bit more specifically. Have you intentionally reached out to stakeholder groups that might have concern to make sure that they are aware of this bill and to get feedback?
Lady from Graham.
Having worked on this issue in 2019 with constitutional carry, we had a myriad of discussions with the law enforcement community, and to this date, there's not been any opposition despite the fact that the bill has come through the committee process and no group or stakeholder has expressed any opposition to it.
Lady from Jefferson 34.
Thank you. May I speak on the bill, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief in my remarks. The group of stakeholders that I'm most interested in today are our young people. To say that lowering the age to conceal carry is insulting to our youth feels like a gross understatement. Our young people have grown up with things that the majority of us in this room did not have to grow up with. If I had to guess, I'd say there's probably maybe only 5 members in here that have ever had to participate in active shooter drills, have ever actually witnessed a live shooter experience within a school, or even a swatting incident, which I know my own child has experienced while she was in high school. We are in very different times. Our kids have had to endure so much more than what we have. So to prioritize easier access to firearms over the peace of mind over our students is to tell them that the trauma that they have experienced has never been or probably never will be a catalyst for change, but merely an inconvenience to be ignored. And I feel strongly that if young people ages 18 to 20 were asked about this, that this isn't something they'd be in favor of. I have a 17-year-old, I have a 21-year-old, I have an intern who was not in favor of this, and I didn't even pose the question. With all the things that our young people need, and it's a lot, this isn't it. This isn't helping solve any of the major problems that they are struggling with right now. Food, health insurance, access to care, stable housing, good, strong, free public education. The list is really long, and this isn't helping us as a state accomplish anything that's really going to move us forward. So I will be a no on this bill today. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson 33 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to recognize the important discussion we've had about constitutional rights and so forth, but I rise as a father a suburban father of 3 teenage boys, a 19-year-old Sam, a 17-year-old Will, and a 15-year-old Daniel. When we talk about active shooter drills, I remember a time 2 years ago when I got a call. I was headed to Frankfort, and there was an active shooter, we thought, at Manual High School. I turned around and I drove faster than I've ever driven before. I was scared to death. My sons were scared. They were texting me from closets in the high school. Thankfully, it was a person who had been walking down the street with an open carry, but it was no active shooter, thankfully. So I felt the pain, the fear that a lot of us have felt, and that hopefully it never comes to realization. But as I stand up, I want to correct the record on a couple things. I'm for this bill. This does not, to quote my friend from Fayette, this does not lower the age limit for people to access these weapons. That is not so. If you're 18 years old today, you can carry a firearm. You have access just like you will after this passes. No changes. You can open carry. What this bill does, as the lady from Grant has said, is it adds safety protocols for those who are 18, 19, and 20. It requires a background check that's not required today for those to carry openly. It requires training. It requires these people, these young adults, to show that they're proficient in using their guns, their firearms, before they can get this license. Isn't that what we want? Not everybody does. Some want to go further. But that's what this suburban father of 3 teenage boys wants. This will increase safety. Make no mistake about it. Those who want to carry, if they wait till they're 21 or maybe carry concealed before they're 21 illegally, they don't have to get training. They don't have to show they're proficient. Under this bill, they will. And so I voted against the constitutional carry a couple years ago. I know I was one of the few that did. I did it as a suburban father of young boys, and as a suburban father of young boys here today, I'm telling you, this will increase safety, and therefore I'm for it. I also want to correct one more thing. There's been, I think, some good discussion on both sides, but there's also been some fear-mongering. When we bring up teachers, we don't want to bring out fists, they'll bring out guns. That is rank fear-mongering. This bill does nothing to change where you can lawfully carry. You are not today able to carry in a school, and you will not, after this bill passes, be able to carry in a school. That is rank fear-mongering. It ought not be mentioned on the floor in a debate like this. I support this bill as a father of 3 teenage boys because this will improve safety for our young folks and for everybody in Kentucky. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Campbell 67 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I speak on this bill?
Yes, sir, you may.
I guess this is going to make me start to sound like a conservative. I'm just not really sure the compelling reason for this. You know, Kentucky was one of the first 2 states to ban concealed carry. 1813 to 2019, concealed carry was prohibited. You know, this was our General Assembly, along with Louisiana in 1813, felt it was unnecessary for people to have concealed carry unless for very specific exceptions. 2019, again, this was instituted for people over 21. I guess it's going to happen again today for people 18. I just don't see the compelling reason to change something that served us so well for over 200 years. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the lady from Fayette 75 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lady yield to a question?
She will yield.
Lady, does Kentucky have a well-regulated militia?
Lady from Grant.
When it comes to our Second Amendment rights, I think it's very clear in the plain text that they shall not be infringed, the right to keep and bear arms.
Lady from Fayette.
That sounds like a no to me. Will she yield to another question?
That was not the lady from Grant's answer. She will yield another question.
By what mechanisms under Kentucky law can a concerned parent, spouse, friend, teacher reach out to law enforcement to have a weapon removed from someone who's in crisis?
I'm not familiar
Grant.
with, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't specifically recall the exact statute, 202A. There is a process, and I can yield to the gentleman from Jefferson as well to talk about that, but there absolutely is a process that is already in place where people can attempt to reach out to have services for folks that are in crisis.
Gentleman from Jefferson 33.
The lady from Grant is correct. There's a process called KRS 202A where you can go to the county attorney and any citizen can file a petition if they think someone is having a mental health moment where they could benefit from a pause button, if you will.
Lady from Fayette.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we could share that information because I am concerned that the more we allow guns to be hidden in our society, the harder it will be to protect those we love from those mental health crises. So I'm glad that people of Kentucky now know they can go to their county attorney to protect their loved ones in crisis. Mr. Speaker, may I speak on the bill?
Yes, ma'am.
I rise today in opposition to House Bill 319, which will allow 18 to 21-year-olds to concealed carry weapons across the Commonwealth. This debate cannot be separated from the mental health reality facing young adults in Kentucky. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death for young people, and in Kentucky, 2 out of 3 gun deaths is a suicide. When a firearm's present during a mental health crisis, the risk of death increases dramatically. Young adults of this age group are navigating enormous transitions personally. They're leaving home, they're starting college or work, they're experiencing financial stress in a way they never have before, social pressure, and they're still developing both emotionally and neurologically. Kentucky's suicide rate already exceeds the national average, and our mental health system is stretched thin, especially in rural communities. Expanding concealed carry for this age group ignores those realities. Supporters of this bill often point to our young people who serve in the military and carry weapons in their national service. But that comparison does not hold. Military service members are extensively and continuously vetted for mental health issues. And there are processes to remove gun access when a service member shows signs of distress. Much easier to access processes, faster with less due process. Service members receive rigorous and ongoing firearm training for safety and marksmanship. They utilize their weapons within a structured system that includes strict supervision and access to mental health resources. And even with all of that training and support, the suicide rate of young veterans is tragically high, outpacing the general population. I have friends who I have lost to suicide, both veterans and not. And I'm sure many of us do as well. In Kentucky, 100 veterans die by suicide each year, and 80% of them use a gun. That should give us pause, not confidence, that expanding young people's access to concealed weapons is safe. This bill is not solving a problem that many Kentuckians are facing. Rather than attending to the youth mental health crisis and the scourge of gun violence in communities, this bill, one of the first passed through this body, which I assume is going to happen, we'll just take it for what it is. That's the priority of this General Assembly, to put the guns behind closed, concealed carry for young people. That's going to increase the access to the most lethal means of self-harm for an age group at already elevated risk during moments of crisis. If we truly care about young Kentuckians, our focus should be on expanding mental health care, crisis services, and suicide prevention, not policies like this one that make irreversible outcomes more likely. For those reasons, I vote no. I encourage other members to do the same. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson 42 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I speak on the bill?
Yes, sir.
I rise to acknowledge that in this very moment, my heart is racing. I never considered myself to be a nervous public speaker. This is a hard thing to talk about. We've had some good debate, and with respect to the sponsor and the Second Amendment, and probably all of the careful consideration gone into bringing this bill on the floor, I would ask that this body allow me to speak about something that's a little bit more personal. I thought about who I should talk to today. Should it be us in this room? Should it be people watching? Whose voices need to be elevated? Some of the voices that need to be elevated are the nearly 100 voices that can't talk anymore, forever. That number of nearly 100 is the number of juvenile deaths by guns in my city alone in the last 5 years. I don't know about you all, but as a minister, I've gone to a lot of funerals. There's nothing harder than going to the funeral of a young person whose life is gone too soon. But maybe unlike you, I've walked up to the caskets. When I look inside, some of those cases, I've saw myself sitting there. It's terrifying. I've got to hug the families. I've got to feel them break in my arms, thinking about their child that won't come home again, won't sit at the kitchen table, won't make a joke, won't grow up. And for those of you in law enforcement, like my dad was, you know that scream, you know that cry all too well. And you console them. And sometimes they ask you questions like, I wish there was something I could do. What do you think? And out of all of the questions they've asked me and out of all of the things they said they needed, you know what they never said they needed? This bill. They never asked for it. They wanted to keep their kids safe. And so last year, back at home, when I watched the news and I heard reports of a shooting at a bus stop or at a park from kids 18 and under, I decided today I needed to get over that fear and anxiety and stand up and speak on behalf of those families. You know, the only thing that's scarier than a person with a gun you can see is a person with a gun you don't. That's terrifying. And the families in my district and my community that called and texted me and emailed me about this, they said they needed more things like housing and education and health care, and we know what people need in the Commonwealth: opportunity, stability, hope. But I can't answer one question for them. I can't tell them how to protect themselves from a threat they can't see. I understand the bill. I understand that it expands concealed carry to young adults. I just need things to slow down in my district, because I need young people to learn how to walk away from conflict. I need them to choose their life over impulse. I need them to not be afraid to go to the bus stop and not be afraid to go to the park, places where they should feel safe. I need them to not shoot and ask questions later. We need them to do that. So I'll do whatever I can to prevent it. This vote that I'm going to take is not about the political theater. It's very personal. It is about the families and the children that we are losing, that I'm losing in my district. So for those voices who can't talk anymore, for those families who are still grieving today, who hearing this testimony and seeing that this bill passed will re-trigger them, and for every future voice who may not yet know how to handle their emotions when they're handling a firearm, I will vote no, and I encourage this body to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the lady from Kenton 63 for discussion of the matter.
Will the sponsor yield to a question?
She will yield.
Thank you. Lady, can you tell me, has crime declined since we have had constitutional carry?
Lady from Grant.
Lady, studies have shown that crime has consistently decreased in the Commonwealth since we've passed constitutional carry.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the lady from Fayette 76 for discussion of the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I speak on the bill, please?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Y'all are going to expect me to strongly oppose this bill, and to be clear, I do. But I will give credit where credit is due. I really like the portions of this bill that require a background check, that require education before people can own a firearm. I wish that this body would consider having those provisions for all gun owners. So there are a lot of portions of this bill that I don't like, and here's why. This morning, I took my 16-year-old sophomore to school at Tates Creek High School in Lexington. And on the way to school this morning, I told her about this bill that we may hear today. She physically reacted. You could see her tense up with the anxiety that the idea that people might be able to conceal carry, potentially in her school, but even just out in the park where she walks through to go into her school. Her school in particular had 2 instances of gun violence within a quarter of a mile within 4 days earlier this year. This has been an area that our community has been working really hard to prevent gun violence from happening again. And I would reference the lady's previous question. I'm blanking on her district right now. That crime has decreased since the concealed carry was allowed in the Commonwealth. That also coincides with the time that major cities such as Lexington and Louisville have actively been working to reduce gun violence with preventative measures. So the fact that our crime rates have gone down is a correlation, not necessarily a causation of the concealed carry laws here. What I do know is that the idea of a concealed carry for those who do not have concealed carry, who do not want to own or carry weapons, it is actually scarier for them, because that time frame means that split second between when something is concealed and when it is brought out into the open, that split second is the difference between life or death. It is the time that allows them to run away, to call for help, or to get their own weapon out if they happen to be carrying something as well. That is true whether you are a student, a law enforcement officer, or a member of the public. Those concealed carry laws are not about keeping people from the ability to carry a weapon. That is never in question here. The difference is whether it gives people that added few seconds of bonus when they know that they are armed and the other person doesn't. My colleague from Fayette 77 spoke about having grown up with guns, and the gentleman from Rowan actually spoke on it as well. And I think that's a very big difference there's a very big difference between gun culture in rural areas, in rural Kentucky, and what it is in urban areas. In rural areas, it is a family legacy. Fathers and sons are you're learning with a family, or parents and children in general are learning in a family environment to handle guns safely, to understand how to use them, to go hunting if that may be the case. Whatever it is a thing that is taught and handed down from generations. In more urban areas, it's not. We don't have the same hunting culture. And in fact, the hunting that our children are taught comes from video games or violent Hollywood movies. So when we talk about gun culture in our urban areas, it is very different from what you all think of at home. So I want you all to be mindful that this bill would not just impact the rural areas and a place where you are taught in a more family-friendly environment. It is impacting all of us, and all of us have different needs. So the gentleman from Boone 66 mentioned earlier that the showing of the firearm prevents 91% of crime. And if that is the case, why would you want to hide it? Thank you.
Lady from Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to provide some additional points of clarity and address some of the things that we've been hearing. We've had a robust discussion today on a myriad of worthwhile topics, but there have been some blatant falsehoods that have been said here today, and I'm not going to presume that those blatant falsehoods were delivered intentionally on behalf of people, but they continue to be repeated. So I think that it's important to address the fact that no aspect of this bill is changing anywhere that a firearm cannot currently. There's no aspect of this bill that does that. That changes where a firearm can currently be possessed in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And moreover, a point of clarification, we keep hearing about schools and all of these things, and that's nothing to do with this bill. It's not relevant in any way. And as far as a question that I received a little bit ago about being able to call to remove a firearm from a child who is dealing with some type of acute psychiatric distress, these are not children we're talking about, for one. And there is already a mechanism in place to help Kentuckians who may be experiencing some type of mental health crisis. I've also heard false equivalencies made between being able to purchase alcohol or rent a car or any of those things. Those are not constitutional rights. That's the difference here. We're talking about a constitutional right. And I've also heard it said that somehow open carry is safer, I believe is kind of what I was inferring a moment ago, that people should have to carry openly so that you can see where the firearm is, so forth, so on. I support open carry. I think that it's a constitutional right. Thinking about it, I know it's a constitutional right, but I will say this. As a 5'2" female, I am not comfortable with open carry. I prefer to concealed carry because someone, I'm going to venture to say that over half of the adult population at least is bigger than I am, taller than I am. And it would be easy to overcome me and take that firearm and use it against me, or, even just knowing that I have it. Concealed carry is safer. And for law-abiding adults who are 18, 19, and 20, they have just as much of a constitutional right to be able to concealed carry. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the lady from Nelson 50 for discussion of the matter.
Yes, sir. Speak on the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I've heard a lot about veterans today. As a veteran who has served in multiple combat zones, I find it insulting that we would use veteran suicide or service as a way to erode our constitutional rights, the very things that we have served to protect. So I just support the bill, and I just find it insulting that we would even consider saying veteran suicide is because the Constitution and people have a right to carry arms. Thank you.
Thank you, lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Shelby 58. For what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This point was made just a second ago, but I want to reiterate it and speak a little bit more about it. Empowering 18 to 21-year-old women with the right to conceal carry isn't just about equality. It's about real-world safety in a very dangerous world. Currently, these young adults can openly carry a firearm, but that visibility turns them into targets. An attacker could spot the weapon from afar, close the distance quickly, and disarm them before they even have a chance to react. Open carry broadcasts vulnerability, inviting preemptive strikes or theft, especially for women who may face physical disadvantage, as was just mentioned, in close quarter confrontations. Concealed carry changes that equation dramatically. With proper training, as this bill requires, women can keep their firearms hidden, maintaining the element of surprise. This allows for a faster, more efficient draw in self-defense scenarios where seconds matter. Training ensures they know how to handle, aim, and deploy the weapon responsibly, turning it from a liability to a lifesaver. Denying concealed carry to 18 to 21-year-old women while allowing open carry forces them into a riskier option. It's time we trust trained young women to protect themselves discreetly and efficiently, effectively, because their safety should not be left to chance or to age barriers for young adults. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 43 for discussion of the matter.
May I speak on the bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A couple of points to clarify. We oftentimes talk about taking people's guns. Nobody's talking about taking anybody's guns. No, keep your guns. But the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia. Because we have a community to protect. It's not your personal opinion about what you think or what your family does. It's about the whole community. And if the community is saying, we are afraid, there are too many guns, then we should do something about it. In fact, while we're at it, we should be feeding kids and not talking about this. Secondly, someone said they're doing it anyway, so we might as well make it legal. That's not a legal standard. If they're doing it anyway and they can't do it, arrest them. Then finally, the death rates in Kentucky are higher since 2019, not lower. They're higher. So we have all this false information to pass a bill that we want to pass instead of looking at the facts and asking the central question. What is best for Kentuckians? How do we save lives? And why is it that children are afraid to go to school and have to participate in drills and have to give samples of their DNA in case they're shot? What are we doing about that?
Question before the body is passage of House Bill 312. Clerk will sound the chimes. Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed nay. Roll call is open for your vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change or explain their vote? Chair recognizes the gentleman from Lincoln for explanation of vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to explain my yes vote. I am voting yes today on this bill, and that's because as a CCDW license holder, and many of us in this body probably are, we know that we are less likely to have gun crimes committed by those license holders. We also know that we're held to a higher standard by additional statutes when we have the opportunity to hold that license. So we know that it's not law-abiding citizens who are committing some of these crimes and some of the scenarios that were mentioned today. And again, some of these scenarios are not even related to this, especially in schools and places that you're already restricted to hold those guns. You can't do it now. You're not going to be able to do it after this bill passes. But I also want to point out one last thing, Mr. Speaker, that it was mentioned several times on this floor today that brain development does not occur until the mid-2020s by several people here. And I just hope that our friends on the other side of the aisle will remember that statement when we talk later on about children getting to make their own life-altering health care decisions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson 30 for explanation of vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support common sense gun regulations. In fact, I've sponsored an assault weapons ban. I've sponsored a mandatory waiting period with no loopholes or exceptions, even for private sales or gun shows. I've sponsored magazine restrictions, caliber restrictions, silencer restrictions, and bump stock restrictions. I oppose the auctioning of firearms that were seized in a crime. I even support a mandatory firearm registry. But all of these policies would apply equally to everyone, just as our current restrictions on protected spaces do. Our current age restriction on a constitutional right is fundamentally anti-democratic, and I cannot support that any more than I could age-based restrictions on free speech or the free exercise of religion, so I painfully must vote yes on this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Boone 66 for explanation of vote not to exceed 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, in the Virginia Ratification Convention for the U.S. Constitution, George Mason once said, "I ask, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people, except for a few public officials." Today gets us one step closer to be clear that the whole people have their whole rights. And I hope that the people of Kentucky remember this day and that they remember the advocacy to have citizens arrested for the exercise of their constitutional rights, which has happened before in recent memory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 41 for explanation of vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and don't get your gavel out. Oh, no! Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I voted no on this bill, as I'm sure the lady would expect me to, but I want to remind the body that in 2023, 47,000 people died from gun violence. Over 58% of those people, 27,000 and something, were suicides. So the idea that you have it to protect yourself, it's really something that is so easy to do when you're contemplating suicide, is to get that gun and kill yourself. And most of them were young men. So to lose that many folks and young men to gun violence by suicide is so tragic, to not only to their families and friends, but to our whole society. So remember that. I know it's not about this bill, but it's about gun violence in this society. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for keeping that gavel under the desk.
It's always handy, lady from Jefferson. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Fayette 77 for explanation of vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to explain my vote, my no vote on
Yes,
this
sir.
issue. I think that this is something that either this body or future body will have to come back and address. Gun violence in our communities is rampant, and to give 18 to 21-year-olds the ability to obtain a provisional concealed carry permit is like giving a monkey a hanging aid with the pin pulled. I think that we're going to rule today, if this bill passes, that we allowed it to pass this body and become law in Kentucky. So I proudly vote no, and I hope that citizens in the Commonwealth will remember this vote, and that this is a bad bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Knox 86 for explanation of vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to stand and say that I appreciate the sponsor with this bill because of the training aspect to it and bringing the ability for those to be able to carry a firearm, that they have to be trained to be able to do this. And I thought about this for years while I've been up here. I'd like for a program to be in our schools, that they can be educated on how to handle a gun, the safety aspects of a gun. I think that we need to start them even younger to bring the awareness of what a gun is used for. and the aspect of what a gun can be used for, and also the safety aspects of it. So I'm a yes today because I believe there's responsibility with this bill, and I appreciate the sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 44 for explanation of vote not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to explain my no vote.
Yes, ma'am.
As a person that has been physically assaulted in the past and that has worked at a school where we once had to go on lockdown because of an active shooter, is why I voted no. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the lady from Grant for explanation of vote not to exceed 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, would like to explain the fact that we've heard a lot of things here today, and I spoke in favor of this bill already, and explaining my vote seems like a moot point, but no aspect of this bill expands the ability of these individuals to possess a firearm. They already can, and I think that it's fundamentally important to remember that. None of the arguments that have been made about violence or mental health, they do not pertain to this bill in so much as 18, 19, and 20-year-olds can already possess firearms. Thank you.
All members voted. Clerk will take the roll. Means 73 members voting aye, 17 members voting nay. House Bill 312 is passed. Lady from Grant.
Move the clencher.
Without objection, clencher is applied. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, that concludes the orders of the day.
Next order of business is motions, petitions, communications, and announcements. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, that House Resolutions 30 and 33 be taken from the Committee on Committees and brought to the House floor.
Without objection, so ordered. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, that House Resolution 7 be taken from the Committee on Rules and brought to the House floor.
Without objection, so ordered. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, in the way of an announcement, the plan right now is to convene Monday at 4. If the forecast is accurate, which it can be wrong, some people call states of emergencies on a forecast and not just on actually what happens. But if the forecast is correct and we are unable to convene, we will notify the members prior to Monday that we will not convene. But when we do adjourn, we will adjourn until 4 p.m. and plan to be here on Monday. Keep your phones and communications open, and we will communicate with you the decision on the schedule should it have to change. That is all I have, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Spencer. For what purpose, sir?
Make an announcement, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Members of the House Standing Committee on Post-Secondary Education, in the event we're not here to make the announcement on Monday, we will not meet on Tuesday morning.
Members take note. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Bell. For what purpose, sir?
Make an announcement.
Yes, sir.
The House Standing Committee on Appropriations and Revenue will not meet on Tuesday. Thank you.
Members take note. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Carter. For what purpose, sir?
To make an announcement, please.
Yes, sir.
To the members of local government, as of now, we will be meeting on Tuesday at 9 a.m., subject to change due to weather cancellations. Thank you.
Members take note. Any other members seeking recognition of motions, petitions, communications, and announcements? Seeing none, the next order of business is introduction of new bills and resolutions. Clerk, please report.
House Bill 480, Representative McPherson, an act relating to state contracts. House Bill 481, Representative Rayburn, an act relating to sex offenders. House Bill 482, Representative Dossett, an act relating to hemp-derived vapor products. House Bill 483, Representative Bratcher, an act relating to the purchase of firearms by state employees. House Bill 484, Representative Moore, an act relating to domestic relations. House Bill 485, Representative Nemus, an act relating to the care and treatment of individuals with mental illness. House Bill 486, Representative Wesley, an act relating to the mental health of first responders. And House Joint Resolution 41, Representative White, a resolution designating the William Argus Bill Johnson Memorial Highway in Rowan County.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next order of business is meeting Committee on Committees and Rules Committee. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, the House be in recess for a meeting of the Committee on Committees and the Rules Committee at the clerk's desk.
Without objection, the House will stand in recess for a meeting of Committee on Committees and Rules Committee at the clerk's desk. House come to order. Next order of business, report of Committee on Committees and the Rules Committee. Clerk, please report.
The Committee on Committees has met and referred the following bills and resolutions: to Agriculture, House Bill 417, to Appropriations and Revenue, House Bills 405 and 406, to Economic Development and Workforce Investment, House Bills 392, 402, and 403, to Elections, Constitutional Amendments, and Intergovernmental Affairs, House Bills 394, 404, and 413, to Families and Children, House Bill 418, to Health Services, House Bills 393, 401, 407, 408, 409, and 412. To the Judiciary, House Bills 399, 400, and 410. To Local Government, House Bills 411 and 414. To Natural Resources and Energy, House Bills 397 and 398. To Primary and Secondary Education, House Bills 390, 391, and 395. To State Government, House Bill 396, and to Transportation, House Bill 7. The Committee on Committees has reassigned to Elections, Constitutional Amendments, and Intergovernmental Affairs, House Bill 356 from Appropriations and Revenue. The Rules Committee has met and posted the following bills and resolutions to the regular orders for Monday, January 26, 2026. House Bills 134 and 306.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next order of business, introduction of floor amendments. Being no need. Next order of business is adjournment. Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I move you, sir, the House will stand adjourned until 4 p.m. Monday, January 26, the year of our Lord, 2026.
Without objection, the House will stand adjourned until 4 p.m. Monday, January 26, the year of our Lord, 2026.